So Spencer Lee is registered for the U.S. Open. Huge news in wrestling, right? And everyone's excited because, hey, we're going to get to see Spencer Lee make a run at the world team. But for me, that's not the most interesting part about it, right? Because if you think about Spencer Lee and his track record and his history, what has he said over the years? He said, since high school, and probably even before high school, freestyle is my best style and it's my favorite style. Best style, favorite style. He said that for a really, really long time. Yet, despite that fact, and Spencer Lee has been consistent in this, he has entered exactly one tournament since September of 2016. And that was the 2019 Senior Nationals. He won. He looked spectacular. And oh, by the way, the time before that, he last competed, he won a world title. So when he's competed, he's been great. But he hasn't been able to do it much. Why? Because Spencer Lee is not going to enter a tournament unless he is ready to go. And he is ready to compete at a championship level. So in 2018, we didn't see him. In 2021, 22, we didn't see him. Okay, there's a lot of years in between. 2017, we didn't see him. But now he's entered. He's in. So what does that say? To me, that says Spencer Lee is not just entered the tournament, he is entered to win it, right? And you may say, okay, that's obvious, it's Spencer Lee. That's the case with every tournament. But he is very thoughtful, and the Iowa staff is very thoughtful about the situations they put him in. And he's registered, and he's in. He's going to be wrestling at 57 kilograms at the U.S. Open. But there's other significance to Spencer entering this tournament at this time. He registered on April 13th. And you may say, okay, who cares? Why is that significant? Most of the guys are already registered for this tournament at this point. He's a little on the later side of registration. Well, let's go back to his interview with Barstool. And what's been consistently thought is that Spencer Lee's going to register on the last day because if Spencer Lee, fair or not, right or wrong, if Spencer Lee enters a tournament and pulls out, it is a thing. A lot of wrestlers could enter this tournament and then pull out, and it would be like, okay, whatever. If Spencer Lee does it and he doesn't wrestle, he knows full well it's a thing. It's just part of being Spencer Lee. It's part of being one of the most popular wrestlers in the entire world. Okay, so what does April 13th have to do with anything? Well, the last day to register was April 23rd. Okay, so 10 days before he gets in the tournament. What does that say? That to me says Spencer Lee is feeling really, really good. Okay? And a lot of you, and we'll get into the challenges and the rivals that he's going to have to knock out just to get to the final boss, which is Thomas Gilman at Final X. Before we even get to that, let's look back. And you may be saying, okay, Spencer Lee, yeah, he's a great wrestler, but this guy, he just lost in the NCAA semifinals. He didn't finish the tournament. He had this great disappointment. Surely a month later, he's not going to be able to compete at a championship level, right? Well, there's a track record of legends getting it done after NCAA disappointment. I remember in 2017, Thomas Gilman loses. He was the #1 seed, huge favorite that year to win the NCAA title at 125 pounds. He falls in the semis to Darian Cruz, okay? He goes in the last chance qualifier. He wins, barely edges out Daniel DeShazer. Then he goes to the World Team Trials, beats Graf, beats Nato, beats Tony Ramos 2 out of 3 to make the World Team right after NCAA disappointment. Then he goes to the World Championships and he makes a World Final. Okay, go back 2 years before that. We all saw the iconic pin, Kyvan Gadsden, first period pin against Kyle Snyder. What does Kyle Snyder do 1 month later? He goes to the U.S. Open, he beats Jaden Cox, and then he beats he beats Jake Varner, the Olympic champion, to win the U.S. Open. And then months later, he goes to the World Team Trials, where he beats Jake Varner twice, the Olympic champion. And what's he do after that? He goes and wins Worlds. He takes out Gadisov, who was considered the #1 or #2 pound-for-pound guy in the world at that time. This is just months after NCAA disappointment. So don't say, okay, or don't think for a second, because this happened at NCAAs, that somehow is going to correlate to anything for Spencer at the U.S. Open. I firmly don't believe that that's going to be the case. And I think what you have to realize is the way that the greats in our sport, the Snyders, the Gilmans, the David Taylors, the Burrows, Dakes, etc., they don't think like us. They don't think normally. Spencer Lee can take a loss and the world's not shattering. Darian Cruz can beat Thomas Gilman, and Thomas Gilman is not going to think, oh, wow, I can't beat Darian Cruz, because, in fact, at the World Team Trials, he tech-followed Darian Cruz, right, or beat him soundly. So they don't think like us. So don't try to think like them. So we're going to see Spencer Lee. I think we're going to see a full-on Spencer Lee in his favorite style. I think him entering 10 days before says he is feeling really, really good about his preparation and how he's going to do. And so there's questions now. Who is going to be in Spencer Lee's way? Okay, well, it's some rivalries will be rekindled. First thought is the guy everyone thought Spencer was going to see in the NCAA finals, Patrick Glory. Right? We're all looking forward to the match. Can Patrick Glory go with him? The match doesn't happen. Patrick Glory is the NCAA champion. Glory that night says, hey, I'm making a run at 57 kilograms. I want to make the Olympic team. I want to make a world team. I'm going for it. Right? So he registers for the U.S. Open. Spencer Lee could face him. Now, Spencer Lee's going to be facing him in his best style. Patrick Glory, much more of a folk style specialist. So on paper, Spencer going to be a favorite to take that out. But when you want to talk about a rivalry that spans years and years, let's talk about Nick Suriano. Spencer Lee and Nick Suriano have been linked since literally middle school. Okay, these guys wrestled in Spencer's 8th grade year, Nick Suriano's 9th grade year in the Super 32 finals. And the crazy thing is, this isn't us looking back and be like, wow, can you believe they wrestled then? In that moment, it was significant. And in that moment, everyone that was in the know on wrestling knew these are two guys that are on a legendary trajectory. And they absolutely were. And then they wrestled again the next year, 9th and 10th grade Super 32, with Spencer edging out Nick, getting revenge from his previous year's loss. And then a couple years later, they meet in the NCAA Finals 2018, right? And so that was how Spencer got his first title. He took out Nick Suriano. Suriano was coming off of a knee injury at that point in time. And then they haven't hit since. We thought we were going to see them at 2019 Senior Nationals, but this guy, Vito Arujau, said otherwise. He took out Nick Suriano. So where does that leave us? Well, it's been 5 years since those two have wrestled. And they've been linked for so long. They were linked 5 years before that. And I remember when they wrestled Spencer's freshman year, we were like, finally, they're wrestling again. Well, now we could say, potentially, finally, they could wrestle again. And if you think Nick Suriano is not a contender to make this team, you just need to go back a couple years in time. When in 2021, going into the Olympic trials, Nick Suriano was the prohibitive Vegas favorite to make that team. This is a guy, Nick Suriano, who won the tournament 1 month prior that had Thomas Gilman, the eventual Olympian, and Vito Arujau, the runner-up. And so you say, what happened at trials? Well, if you don't remember, Nick Suriano, the only athlete at the Olympic trials who tested positive for COVID-19, was not able to compete, was not allowed to compete. So in that way, his dream was derailed, right? He wasn't able to contend for the team. Of course, Spencer Lee wasn't in that bracket because he had no ACLs to speak of. Now, there's also some other names that are lurking out there because, as I mentioned, registration's not closed. We still haven't seen Dayton Fix. Is he going to register? If he registers, is he going to stay at 61 where he's a world silver medalist, where he's a guy that's been in Final X multiple times? Or is he going to come back down to 57 kilograms to set him up for the 2024 run? We don't know. It's kind of quiet out in Stillwater what Dayton's intentions are. I'm certain that Dayton, his father Derek, John Smith, they have a plan. And if we see Dayton, he's going to be ready to contend at whatever weight he enters. And there's also this Matt Ramos guy, the guy that pinned Spencer Lee in the NCAA semifinals. Matt Ramos, you may say, well, that was in folk style. This guy's a cadet world champion too, just like Spencer. Now, has he won 3 cadet and junior worlds? No. But Matt Ramos is a very, very savvy freestyler. So the table is set. Spencer is in. April 13th says he's ready. Him entering the tournament says he's ready. And that's why we can't wait for the U.S. Open.